The alarms blared across the bridge of the TSS Defiant. Red emergency lights cast long shadows as Captain Sun Lee gripped the arms of her command chair. Through the main viewport, she watched Earth's defense fleet burn. One by one, the blue dots, representing human ships, vanished from the tactical display. "Captain, we're the only ship left," said Officer Park, his voice shaking. His fingers moved quickly over the glowing control panel. Captain Lee stood up, her face hard like stone. She was tall with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. 20 years in space had prepared her for many things. But not this. Not watching her homeworld fall. "The Orion ships are turning toward us," said Officer Choi from the weapons station. "Their main fleet will be in firing range in 3 minutes. Lee looked at the enemy ships on the screen. There were hundreds of them, their strange curved hulls gleaming like wet metal. The Orion Empire had appeared 6 months ago without warning. They sent no messages before they started taking human colonies. Now they had come for Earth itself. "Get me ship-wide," Lee ordered. When the communication officer nodded, she spoke, clearly. "This is your captain. Earth has fallen. We are the last ship standing. Our duty now is to survive and find a way to fight back." Down in engineering, Chief Kim heard the captain's words as he worked frantically on the ship's experimental quantum drive. The drive was humanity's newest technology, not yet tested in battle. It allowed the Defiant to move in ways other ships couldn't, bending space in strange new patterns. "Captain, the quantum drive is ready," Kim reported through his comlink. "But I don't know how long it will hold." On the bridge, Lee nodded. "Nav, plot a course away from Earth, random jumps. Don't let them track us." Young Officer Yoon at navigation looked up with wide eyes. "Where should we go, Captain?" "Anywhere. But here," Lee said, "we need time." The Defiant shuddered as an Orion energy beam grazed their shields. The lights flickered. "Shields at 60%, reported Officer Choi. "They're faster than our simulations predicted." Through the viewport, Lee could see the Orion flagship. It was massive, at least 5 times the size of the Defiant. Its weapons glowed with strange purple energy that seemed to eat the darkness of space. "All power to engines," Lee ordered. "Activate the quantum drive." Officer Kang at engineering control pulled down a lever. The ship hummed with power. Everyone on the bridge felt a strange pulling sensation, as if their insides were being stretched. "Emoir." "Orions are locking weapons," shouted Choi. "Drive active in 3, 2, 1, counted Kang. The stars outside stretched into lines of light. The Defiant jumped away just as the Orion weapons fired, missing them by seconds. In the quiet darkness of deep space, the Defiant reappeared. Earth was now far behind them. The crew breathed again. Captain Lee stared at the damage reports flowing across her screen. "Status? Shields rebuilding. Minor damage to decks 3 and 7. The quantum drive is stable but needs cooling," reported Officer Kang. Lee walked to the tactical station. "Show me what we know about the Orion Empire." The screen filled with images of Orion ships and conquered worlds. The Orions had taken over 200 planets in just 2 years. They were not interested in talking or trading. They simply took what they wanted. "They think we're just another easy target," Lee said quietly. "They don't understand humans yet." In his private quarters, Admiral Tark of the Orion Empire was pleased. His fleet had crushed another primitive world. These humans had put up more fight than most, but in the end they fell like all the others. Only one ship had escaped, barely worth chasing. He would send a small fleet to find it later. "Add Earth to our resource worlds," he told his second-in-command. "The humans will make good workers in the mines." Back on the Defiant, Captain Lee called a meeting with her top officers. The ship's small conference room was packed with tired, worried faces. "We have 150 crew on board," Lee began. "We have the experimental quantum drive, and we have something the Orions don't expect, the will to fight when all seems lost." "But what can one ship do against their entire empire?" asked Officer Park. Lee's dark eyes flashed. "We find their weakness. Every empire has one, and when we find it, we strike." Chief Kim spoke up. "The quantum drive can be modified. I've been studying it. It can do more than just move us through space." For the first time since the attack, Lee felt a spark of hope. Work on it, Chief. The rest of you, study everything we know about the Orions. Find me something we can use. As the meeting ended, Lee stayed behind, looking at the star map. Somewhere out there were other human survivors, colonies, outposts, maybe even other ships that escaped. The Orions thought they had won. They thought humans would surrender and accept their fate. The captain smiled grimly. The Orions were about to learn a painful lesson about humanity. When pushed to the edge with nothing left to lose, humans became the most dangerous force in the galaxy. The Defiant drifted silently among the massive rocks of the asteroid belt. Captain Lee had ordered all non-essential systems shut down. Only life support and minimal sensors remained active. Through the viewport, the crew could see the endless field of spinning rocks that now hid their ship. "Do you think they'll find us here?" asked Officer Yoon, his voice barely above a whisper, even though the Orions couldn't possibly hear them. "They're looking," Captain Lee replied, studying the sensor readings. "But this belt has millions of asteroids. We're just one more piece of rock to their scanners." 3 days had passed since their escape from Earth. The crew worked in shifts, repairing damage and mourning their lost home. Sleep came rarely for Captain Lee. When she closed her eyes, she saw Earth burning. On the Orion command ship, Admiral Tark stood before a holographic map of the star system. His gray skin shimmered under the blue light of the display. Around him, Orion officers moved with quick, efficient motions, their four-fingered hands dancing over control panels. "The human vessel cannot have gone far," Tark said. "Their technology is primitive compared to ours." His second-in-command bowed slightly. "We have dispatched 300 ships to search nearby systems. They will find this Defiant Arc." Nodded. "Good. I want this matter settled quickly. One small ship is hardly worth my attention, but I dislike loose ends." The humans showed unexpected resistance, the second-in-command said carefully. "Their final ship used a strange drive, technology our sensors could not fully analyze." Tark waved a dismissive hand. "A minor curiosity, nothing that will save them." Back on the Defiant, Chief Engineer Kim called an emergency meeting in engineering. The room was cramped, filled with humming machines and tangled wires. Captain Lee squeezed inside along with 5 other senior officers. "I've been studying the quantum drive," Kim said, pointing to a complex diagram on his screen. He was a short man with round glasses and hands stained with engine grease. "It does more than just move us through space." "What do you mean?" Lee asked. Kim pointed to a series of equations. "The drive bends reality around us, but with modifications we could use it to do something else. Something the Orions won't expect." Officer Park frowned. "What, exactly?" "We could create a quantum resonance field," Kim explained. "It would disrupt any energy systems within range, possibly even their shields and weapons." "How close would we need to get?" Captain Lee asked. Kim's expression grew serious. "Very close. And there's something else. The modifications might overload our drive. There's a 30% chance it could destroy us." A heavy silence fell over the room. Captain Lee looked at each face around her. They were tired, afraid, but still determined. "Do it," she finally said. "Earth is under their control. We have nothing to lose." For 2 days, Kim and his engineering team worked without rest. They rerouted power systems and modified the quantum drive in ways its designers never intended. The work was dangerous. Twice, energy surges nearly killed crew members. Meanwhile, the Orion ships drew closer. Their search pattern was methodical, checking each section of the asteroid belt. It was only a matter of time before they found the Defiant. In her quarters, Captain Lee recorded a message for whoever might find it someday. "This is Captain Sun Lee of the TSS Defiant. If you're hearing this, we likely didn't survive, but know that we tried. The Orion Empire thinks humans are weak. They're wrong. Remember us." She was interrupted by the ship's alarm. On the bridge, Officer Choi pointed to the sensor display. 3 Orion scout ships just entered the asteroid field. They're using some kind of advanced scanning technology. "Lee, watched as the enemy ships moved methodically through the belt. Their scanners swept over rocks looking for anything that didn't belong. "How much longer does Kim need?" she asked. "At least 12 hours, Officer Kang replied. Lee nodded. "Then we'll give him 12 hours. Prepare for silent maneuvering. We'll stay hidden among the larger asteroids." What followed was a deadly game of hide and seek. The Defiant moved silently from one large asteroid to another, using the massive rocks as shields against Orion scanners. Twice they came within seconds of being discovered. In engineering, Kim's team worked frantically. Sweat dripped from their faces as they reconfigured the ship's most delicate systems. The modified drive was unstable, pulsing with energy that made the air itself feel charged. "Captain," Kim called over the comm. "We're ready." Lee returned to engineering to see the modifications herself. The quantum drive had been transformed. New conduits ran from it to the weapon systems and shields. It glowed with an eerie blue, light that seemed to bend the space around it. "Will it work?" she asked. Kim wiped his forehead. "In theory. But Captain, I must be clear. This modification goes against every safety protocol. We're asking the drive to do something it wasn't built for. If it fails and we all die," Lee finished. "But if we do nothing, we die anyway, and Earth remains under Orion control." Just then, Officer Park's voice came urgently over the comm. "Captain, we've been detected. 3 Orion scouts are converging on our position." Lee looked at her chief engineer. "It seems we're out of time. How soon can we use the modified drive?" "Now," Kim replied. "But once we start, there's no stopping the process." Captain Lee straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. "Then we go now. Send word to Admiral Tark. Tell him the last human warship is coming for him." As alarms blared across the ship, the crew moved to battle stations. Against 300 Orion warships, they had one modified drive and a desperate plan. The odds seemed impossible. But as Chief Kim activated the first stage of the modifications, the quantum drive pulsed with new power. And for the first time since Earth fell, Captain Lee felt something that had been missing. Hope. The Defiant raced through space, 3 Orion scout ships in hot pursuit. Laser fire flashed past the hull as Captain Lee ordered evasive maneuvers. "We can't outrun them forever," Officer Yoon said from the navigation station. "The main Orion fleet is only 2 hours behind." Captain Lee nodded grimly. "We don't need to outrun them. We need to outsmart them." In the science lab, Officer G. Park hadn't slept in 30 hours. His eyes were red as he studied the sensor data from their previous encounters with Orion ships. Something about their shield technology bothered him. Every time the Orions fired their weapons, there was a tiny energy fluctuation in their shields. "Computer, analyze Orion shield patterns during weapons discharge," Park ordered the ship's AI. The computer displayed a series of wave patterns on the screen. Park leaned forward, suddenly alert. "Stop! Go back to time Mark 47. The display changed, showing a specific energy pattern. Park's hands trembled with excitement as he tapped his comm badge. "Captain, I need to see you in the science lab immediately." When Captain Lee arrived, Park pointed to his findings. "Look at this. Every Orion ship uses the exact same shield, frequency, and when they fire their main weapons, the frequency drops for 0.3 seconds. How does that help us?" Lee asked. "We can't possibly hit every ship in that tiny window." Park smiled for the first time in days. "We don't have to. Their shields are synchronized across their entire fleet. If we can disrupt the main frequency, control, we could potentially disable shields across multiple ships at once." Lee's eyes widened. "Get this information to Chief Kim, now." In engineering, Kim and his team were already making progress with the quantum drive modifications. When Park's discovery reached them, Kim called for weapons specialist Han to join them. Han was the youngest senior officer on the ship, barely 30. What she lacked in experience, she made up for with brilliant thinking. She studied Park's findings carefully. "If their shields all operate on the same frequency, we need something that can target that specific pattern," she said. "Something that can spread through their entire network." Kim nodded. "The quantum drive generates particles that exist in multiple states simultaneously. If we could load these particles into special warheads, we could create a cascading failure in their shield network, Han finished. But we'd need precise calculations. Captain Lee turned to the ship's AI system. Computer, can you calculate the exact frequencies needed to disrupt the Orion shield network? The computer's calm voice replied. Calculating. Estimated completion time, 1 hour, 17 minutes. We don't have that much time, Lee said. The Orion fleet will be here before then. Kim thought for a moment. We could redirect power from life support on decks 3 through 7. It would speed up the calculations. Do it, Lee ordered. Evacuate those decks. As crew members moved to safer areas of the ship, the air grew thin and cold in parts of the Defiant, but the computer's calculations accelerated. In the weapons bay, Han worked with a small team to modify their torpedoes. Each one had to be carefully opened and reconfigured to carry the quantum-entangled particles Kim's team was preparing. Careful with that connection, Han warned a technician. If those particles destabilize before launch, they could tear a hole in the ship. The mood throughout the Defiant was tense but focused. In the mess hall, crew members who weren't directly involved in the modifications gathered to fashion makeshift radiation shields from available materials. Others prepared emergency medical kits, knowing that whatever happened next would likely result in casualties. On the bridge, Captain Lee received regular updates as the Orion fleet drew closer. 300 warships against their 1, the largest fleet the Orions had ever assembled to deal with a single enemy vessel. They're afraid of us, Lee realized aloud. Officer Choi looked up from the weapons station. Afraid? They outnumber us, 300 to 1. Exactly, Lee said. Why send so many ships after one vessel unless they fear what we might do? Meanwhile, the ship's AI completed its calculations ahead of schedule. Frequency analysis complete. Optimal disruption pattern identified. Kim immediately fed the information into the modified quantum drive. The drive hummed with new energy, sending strange blue pulses through the specially designed conduits. In the weapons bay, Han received the final specifications for her modified torpedoes. Load the quantum particles according to these exact parameters, she instructed her team. One mistake and this won't work. With only 30 minutes before the Orion fleet would arrive, Captain Lee called all senior officers to the bridge. Their faces showed exhaustion, but also determination. Status report, she demanded. Quantum drive modifications complete, reported Kim. It's highly unstable but should hold for one burst. Modified torpedoes ready, Han added. 6 in total. That's all we had materials for. Shield vulnerability confirmed, Park said. If our timing is perfect, we can disrupt their entire network. Captain Lee looked at each of them. The Orions think their technology makes them superior. They believe in overwhelming force. But humans have always survived by adapting, by finding creative solutions when outmatched. On the main screen, the approaching Orion fleet appeared as a mass of red dots. At their center was Admiral Tark's flagship, twice the size of any other vessel. We'll only get one chance at this, Lee said. If we fail, Earth remains under Orion control, and humanity becomes just another conquered species in their empire. The bridge fell silent. Then Officer Yoon spoke up from his station. Course to the Orion fleet plotted, Captain, on your order. Captain Lee sat in her command chair, her face set with determination. Take us in. The Defiant dropped out of hiding and accelerated toward the center of the Orion fleet. On the bridge, Captain Lee sat straight in her command chair, eyes fixed on the massive enemy formation ahead. 300 warships against 1. It seemed like madness. All crew to battle stations, Lee ordered. Prepare modified torpedoes. Throughout the ship, crew members exchanged worried glances. Many had written final messages to families they would likely never see again. Yet no one hesitated. Each moved quickly to their assigned position. On the Orion flagship, Admiral Tark received the report of the approaching human vessel with amusement. His officers gathered around the tactical display, watching the tiny ship charge directly toward them. They're on a suicide mission, said his second-in-command. Shall we destroy them now? Tark raised a hand. Not yet, I want to savor this moment. Let them come closer. Order the fleet into standard elimination formation. The Orion ships moved with perfect precision, forming a deadly net around the approaching Defiant. Their weapons powered up, glowing with purple energy. They're arranging their ships exactly as we hoped, Officer Park reported on the Defiant's bridge. Their shield network is fully synchronized. Captain Lee nodded. Status of the quantum drive? Chief Kim's voice came through the comm system. Drive is modified and ready, Captain, but I must warn you again. Once activated, we'll have about 20 seconds before it overloads. 20 seconds is all we need, Lee replied. She turned to Officer Han at the weapons station. Arm the modified torpedoes. Han's fingers moved across her console. Torpedoes armed and ready, targeting Orion flagship. The Defiant continued its seemingly suicidal charge. They were now close enough to see the details of Tark's massive flagship through the viewport. It was 5 times the size of their vessel, its hull decorated with the marks of 100 conquered worlds. On that flagship, Admiral Tark finally gave the order. All ships open fire. 300 Orion vessels fired their weapons simultaneously. Space itself seemed to light up with deadly energy beams racing toward the Defiant. Now! Captain Lee shouted. Chief Kim activated the modified quantum drive. The ship shuddered as strange blue energy pulsed through it. For a moment, it felt like reality itself was bending around them. Several control panels sparked and shorted out. Quantum field active, Kim reported. 17 seconds until overload. The approaching Orion weapons fire suddenly seemed to waver and distort. On their ships, alarms began to sound. Admiral Tark frowned as his tactical display filled with warning signals. What's happening? Report. Our shields are experiencing fluctuations, his officer replied, confusion in his voice. All ships reporting the same issue. The human vessel is emitting some kind of interference field. Impossible, Tark slammed his fist on the command console. They're primitives. On the Defiant, Captain Lee gave her next order. Fire torpedoes. Officer. Han launched the 6 modified torpedoes. Unlike normal weapons, these glowed with the same blue energy as the quantum drive. They streaked toward the Orion flagship, easily passing through its now flickering shields. Direct hit, Han reported as the torpedo struck the flagship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, strange blue energy began to spread across the Orion flagship's hull. It pulsed along the ship's communication arrays and weapon systems. Quantum. Entanglement is working, Park said, watching his readings. The particles are spreading through their network. Admiral Tark watched in horror as his ship's systems began to fail one by one. What have they done? He demanded. Then he saw the same blue energy spreading to nearby ships through their communication beams. Disconnect from the fleet network, he ordered. Now. But it was too late. The quantum particles, perfectly calibrated to the frequency of Orion technology, spread from ship to ship. As each vessel was infected, its shields fell and weapons went dead. On the Defiant, the modified quantum drive began to smoke and spark. 5 seconds until critical overload, Kim shouted. Shut it down, Lee ordered. I can't, Kim replied. It's gone too far. Captain Lee made a split-second decision. Eject the drive core, all hands brace for impact. The bottom of the Defiant opened, and the glowing quantum drive core was ejected into space. 3 seconds later, it exploded in a blinding flash of blue light. The shockwave hit the Defiant hard, sending crew members flying. Emergency systems activated as the lights flickered, but the ship held together. As the view screens cleared, the bridge crew stared in amazement at what they saw. Throughout the Orion fleet, ships drifted powerless. Some collided with each other, unable to control their movements. On others, secondary explosions rippled along their hulls. At the center, Admiral Tark's flagship was nearly torn in half, its magnificent form now dark and broken. It worked, Officer Park whispered. Their synchronized network became their weakness. Captain Lee looked at the devastation with no joy, only grim satisfaction. Status report. How many of their ships are disabled? Officer Choi checked the sensors. At least 200 are completely powerless, the rest have partial systems but no weapons or shields. He looked up, his eyes wide. Captain, we've actually done it. We've defeated their fleet. Throughout the Defiant, the crew began to cheer as the news spread. Their impossible gamble had paid off. The most powerful fleet of the Orion Empire had been brought down by one human ship. Captain Lee allowed herself a small smile. Send a message to any human colonies that might be listening. Tell them Earth will not remain conquered for long. In the ruins of his flagship, Admiral Tark stared at the small human vessel that had destroyed everything he commanded. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something new: fear. The Defiant limped away from the battlefield, its hull scarred but intact. Behind it floated the broken remains of Admiral Tark's once mighty fleet. The ship's crew worked quietly, still stunned by what they had achieved. In the medical bay, doctors treated the injured. In engineering, teams repaired critical systems. On the bridge, Captain Lee sat in her command chair watching the stars. "Damage report," she requested, her voice tired but steady. Officer Kang checked his console. "Engines at 40%. Life support stable. Communications damaged but working. We lost 7 crew members." His voice broke slightly at the last part. Lee closed her eyes briefly, honoring the dead. Then she turned to Officer Park. "Do we still have the data on the Orion shield frequencies?" Park nodded. "Complete data, Captain. I've prepared a simple transmission package that even basic resistance communication systems can decode." "Send it," Lee ordered. "Send it to every human colony and outpost and set the transmission to repeat on all frequencies the Orions don't monitor." As Park worked, Officer Han looked up from her station. "Captain, we're picking up transmissions from the Orion Empire. They're in chaos. Word of their fleet's destruction is spreading." For 3 days, the Defiant stayed hidden near the battlefield, making essential repairs. Meanwhile, their transmission spread across space. On planets under Orion control, hidden resistance fighters received the data and began planning. On Proxima Colony, resistance leader Yun received the transmission while hiding in an abandoned mine. He stared at his small communication device, in disbelief. "One ship," he whispered to his fellow fighters. "One human ship destroyed 300 Orion warships." He held up the device. "And they sent us the key to taking down Orion shields." Similar scenes played out across 24 conquered worlds. The news spread even to non-human species under Orion rule. On the desert world of Kalen, the tall, four-armed natives gathered in secret caves to discuss what they had heard. "If humans could do this," their elder said, "why not us?" On the Orion homeworld, the High Council met in emergency session. The council chamber, usually a place of calm order, now buzzed with angry voices. "How could this happen?" demanded the head counselor, slamming his hand on the table. "One primitive ship." An Orion military commander stood to speak. "The humans used our strength against us. Our synchronized systems made us vulnerable." "Can't this happen again?" asked another counselor. "Yes," the commander admitted. "Unless we completely redesign our fleet technology." Back on the Defiant, Captain Lee called her senior officers to the bridge. The ship was functioning again, though many systems remained damaged. "We have a choice to make," she told them. "We can hide, build our strength slowly, or we can return to Earth now while the Orions are still in chaos. The occupation force on Earth still outnumbers us," Officer Choi pointed out. Lee nodded. "Yes, but they're using the same vulnerable shield technology, and now every human on Earth will know it can be beaten." Chief Kim, his face still bandaged from injuries during the battle, spoke up. "I vote we go home, Captain. I want to see Earth free again." One by one, the others agreed. Captain Lee smiled. "Set course for Earth." As the Defiant traveled, reports came in from across the galaxy. On 7 different worlds, resistance fighters had used the shield frequency data to attack Orion bases. On 3 of those worlds, the occupiers had been completely driven out. "It's working," Officer Park said as he shared the news with Captain Lee. "The Orions are pulling back to defend their core systems." Lee watched the reports with a mix of pride and wonder. We've changed everything, haven't we? Not just by beating them, Park replied, but by showing it could be done. 2 weeks later, the Defiant reached Earth's solar system. They approached cautiously, expecting heavy defenses. Instead, they found the Orion occupation fleet already under attack. A dozen makeshift human vessels, cobbled together from civilian ships, were hitting the Orion forces using the same shield frequency vulnerability. Open a channel, Lee ordered. When the connection was made, she addressed the human resistance. This is Captain Sun Lee of the TSS Defiant. We've come home to help. A cheer went up across all channels. Within days, the combined forces drove the last Orion ships from Earth's orbit. Captain Lee and her crew landed to find a planet damaged but unbroken. People emerged from hiding to greet them as heroes. In the months that followed, the story of the Defiant spread throughout the galaxy. It was told in the markets of free worlds and whispered in the slave quarters of those still under Orion control. It became more than just a tale of one battle. It became a symbol of hope. 1 year after the Defiant's victory, representatives from 24 liberated worlds met on Earth to form a new alliance. Captain Lee, now Admiral Lee, addressed the gathering. The Orions thought superior numbers and technology guaranteed victory, she said. They failed to understand that true strength comes from adaptability, creativity, and determination. A delegate from a non-human world stood. Before we feared the Orions were unstoppable. You showed us that no empire is unbeatable when people fight for freedom. Far away in the remnants of his once great empire, former Admiral Tark watched his civilization crumble. The fall had begun with one human ship that refused to accept defeat. A ship called Defiant that had lived up to its name and changed the galaxy forever. The end.